There will be a superstar selected in this year's 2024 NBA draft. And it may not be the first, second, or even third overall pick either. Today we'll discuss the potential superstars in this draft that nobody is talking about. The first player we're going to talk about is Carlton Carrington, the 6'4" guard out of Pittsburgh. Now, I know for sure like 98% of you have never heard of this kid, but let me tell you this. He is a bucket. And the crazy thing is that he was getting buckets at just 18 years old in the ACC conference with teams like North Carolina, Duke, Miami, and NC State roaming around. He averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists per game while shooting 41% from the field and 32% from the three-point line. His biggest strength is his pick and roll ability, especially as a scorer. With how much the pick and roll is utilized in today's game, it is crucial for your guard to be able to facilitate and get to his own spots. He does have questionable shot selection at times, but if anything, it just shows his confidence. And that confidence really shows in isolation situations. Although he does have a nice first step, he plays at a slow pace and doesn't really force anything for the most part. I don't want to jump the gun, but I see a little bit of SGA in his game. Carrington pretty much lives in the mid-range, and he isn't just a pull-up mid-range shooter either. He has a wide arsenal of mid-range moves. He can hit you with a fadeaway, a pump fake, then step through, or get physical and initiate contact to create space to get his shot off. The efficiency isn't there yet, but that's okay because he's just 18 years old in a tough conference. I think that ability to easily blow by top-level defenders will translate, and if it doesn't, at least he can still operate in the pick and roll. Off of the ball, I haven't seen much. With his lack of shooting, you would think he would make up for it with his off-ball movement, but it's almost non-existent. He's most effective with the ball in his hands. And as we know, that won't always be the case in the NBA unless you're like a top 3 pick who's also the franchise guy as a rookie. Carrington is projected to go in the early to mid-first round, so he'll most likely have a bench role, and will have the opportunity to prove himself down the road. Teams that could pick him up are the Timberwolves, Knicks, Wizards, or Nuggets. Out of all of those teams, I would really love to see him with the Nuggets, because like I said, he can score with the ball in his hands, but off the ball is where he's shaky. Nikola Jokic would teach him off-ball movement from day one. This could really open up his game, especially if he can develop a 3-ball, which is maybe the biggest question about his game. If he had a 3-point shot, he would be without a doubt a lottery pick if not higher. But seeing him in Washington could be nice as well. There, he would have no pressure and could develop in the shadows and hopefully come out on the other side as a much more polished player. I don't know though, getting drafted is such a random thing when it comes to predicting a player's success, because a player's success really does come down to where he's drafted. Everything has to fall into place. For example, Tyler Hero was drafted 13th overall to the Heat in 2019 and proved to be a future star immediately. Who's to say it wouldn't have been the opposite if, say, the Celtics had drafted him at 14th or the Hornets drafted him at 12? Would he still be an all-star caliber scorer? Who knows? All in all, I would definitely keep an eye out on this kid. And again, he was just 18 years old in the ACC and managed to be one of the best guards in the conference. That's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. The next player I think that has star potential if drafted in the right place is Khalil Ware, the 7-foot center from Indiana. Ware is a special player. He's a modern-day center whose best attribute is his 3-point shooting. He shot 43% from 3 on 1.3 attempts per game. He was a dangerous pick-and-pop shooter. He could maybe have a similar start to the season as Chet Holmgren, who was lighting it up from beyond the arc. Ware has that ability. He's projected by Bleacher Report to go 16th to the 76ers. There, he could pair up alongside Joel Embiid and space the floor while giving Embiid more room to operate. Also, it would give Tyrese Maxey another pick-and-roll partner once Embiid goes to the bench or, worst-case scenario, is out with injury. He's just an extremely skilled offensive center, maybe even the most skilled offensive center in this year's draft, because down low, he can get buckets too. Despite his thin frame, he is very calculated and calm with a lot of different go-to moves like spin moves, fadeaways over either shoulder, and most importantly, he makes it look smooth as hell. You can tell he loves to be down there. This is a part of his game that many aren't talking about, but I think it could be a game changer. Think about someone like Evan Mobley, who had 3-point shooting potential coming out of USC, but in this year's playoffs, while his threes were solid, he couldn't score down low to save his life. I'm not saying Ware will be an overall better player, but in terms of having a deep bag in the post, Ware is superior as a prospect. Now, am I saying he should try and stay in the post like Nikola Jokic? No, but I think he could thrive as a face-up scorer similar to Anthony Davis. At the rim, he converted 74% of his shots, so his touch is elite around the basket, and he's a solid lob threat for someone who isn't the most athletic. Defensively, he's on and off. One game he can look like Anthony Davis, and then one game he can look like Enes Kanter. But it's more good than bad because he averaged 2 blocks per game while only fouling twice. He's way more disciplined and intelligent as a rim protector than what I thought before studying him, which could be huge for his future. His skill set, along with Embiid, if that happens, could be special. Even if he slips some spots and goes to the Pelicans, I think he would be perfect to replace Jonas Valanciunas if they move on from him. Zion and Ware could be interesting. Then, of course, you have Herb at the forward spot. Now, if only the Pelicans can find a big-time scorer, they could be onto something. Adding Trae Young or even Paul George to the team could be worth it, as long as they fill out the roster with elite shooters. All in all, if you couldn't tell already, I really love this kid. The only concern is his motor and effort, but I think that could be fixed with good coaching and being around veterans. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. The next player who has star potential could be Zach Edey. And I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes, but hear me out. Let's just say he gets drafted 24th by the New York Knicks. While Hartenstein will most likely be picked up by another team for a bigger bag after a great individual season, Zach Edey could be the backup for Mitchell Robinson. And when you think about what the Knicks offense consists of, it's pretty much just set screens for Jalen Brunson and get offensive rebounds to get extra possessions for, you guessed it, Jalen Brunson. But all jokes aside, from what I've seen, he can move well enough to set screens and roll. And let's just say the defense decides to double team Jalen Brunson on the pick and roll, which forces Brunson to quickly dish it out to Edey in the middle of the floor. He's a good enough playmaker to make the right decision, whether it's kick it out to a shooter, or take the mid-range jumper, or step in for a little push shot. The player comparison I see for him is Jonas Valanciunas. Jonas is a really good post scorer who can pass. I strongly believe Edey can be a solid post scorer when entering the league. He won't be putting up 24 points like in college every game, but I think he will be more successful than people think. Defensively, though, is where everything is up for grabs. He was a great defender in college, but that means nothing when comparing it to the NBA. One thing I am worried about is his lack of athleticism as a shot blocker. He's way too grounded for my liking, sort of like a Nikola Jokic. Sure, now Edey has his moments where he leaps up for a block, but can he do it consistently against NBA-level athletes slashing to the rim over and over again? Just think about the best rim protectors in the NBA. Rudy Gobert, Wemby, AD, Evan Mobley, Nick Claxton, Jaren Jackson Jr., Daniel Gafford, and Chet Holmgren, among others, are extremely athletic and can leave the floor just as quick as a guard. Not to mention they can get from one side of the floor to the other for a block at insane speeds for their size. Edey will have to do that to stay on the floor as well as defend the pick and roll, especially if he doesn't provide much offensively. And I know you're probably like, why do you have him on this list if everything is bad? That's because despite saying all of that, I just think he has what it takes to figure out a way to be successful in the NBA. He's already focusing on becoming a better three-point shooter, and if that happens, then it changes everything. And now the last player we're going to briefly mention is Reed Sheppard, the 6'2" guard out of Kentucky. He could be a very good two guard for any team who picks him up. I know he's seen as more of a complimentary player, which isn't a bad thing, but in the right situation, he could possibly be more. He's arguably the best shooter in the draft who can also take guys off the dribble and get to the sweet spot right around the free throw line. Even with that being said, though, his shot creation against elite defenders is something I need to see more of, because that may be the deciding factor in his potential as a future star. Because he can also pass the rock and operate out of the pick and roll, just a very high IQ offensive player. If his shot creation doesn't improve much, or he doesn't focus much on it, depending on the role with the team he's drafted to, he could still be a Dante DiVincenzo, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, or Bruce Brown type of player, which is amazing news for teams with championship aspirations. Sheppard is the type of player that wins big games. If he somehow falls to the Grizzlies at 9, that would be perfect. With Ja Morant, Marcus Smart coming back healthy along with Jaren Jackson Jr., Gigi Jackson, and Vince Williams, they will be one of the favorites to make it pretty far in the postseason. Adding a player like Shepherd could maximize those chances. Because unlike most prospects with his offensive skill set, he is a borderline elite defensive player who put up historic steal and block numbers. So whether he becomes a KCP type of player or something more, he'll without a doubt be a player that impacts winning in the league for a very long time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.